Witchcraft comes from the religio-magic system our Paleolithic ancestors practiced, otherwise known as animism. Animism represents the earliest iteration of man's belief that we can verify. The idea was that all things, living and non-living, contained a conscious soul. The practices therefore involved ways to commune with, manipulate, or invoke in some way these animistic forces. The Chauvet cave in France contains some 30,000-year-old paintings in remarkable conditions. One such painting, dubbed The Venus and the Sorcerer, is a lower half of a woman intertwined with a half-man, half-bison, essentially a minotaur, along with a lion next to it as well. Certainly one of the earliest and clearest representations of this sort of divine feminine archetype, along with a shamanic-like character. Another cave in France, the Cave of Three Brothers, contains one of the most enigmatic figures of Paleolithic art. It was drawn around 15,000 BC, and similarly called the Sorcerer. It appears to either be an anthropomorphized horned creature or a shaman in full animal regalia. Although controversial, it is claimed that the Sorcerer is the oldest horned god of the hunt archetype, and even represents the greater sense of the motif as a universally worshipped deity. Venus figurines have been found as far back as 35,000 years ago, and again thought to represent a motif of the feminine fertility goddess. So the precursor to religion can be reduced to the theme of the divine masculine and divine feminine. Basically, the male energy and the female energy, the anima and animus as personified or deified as animistic vessels. In essence, the phallus and the yoni. Although it is true that we do not know the full significance of these drawings and figurines in the full context of our ancestors, we can make educated assumptions. Many of these motifs are found around places of ritual, evidenced by altars and other animal figurines. There is also evidence going back around 30,000 years of figurines being used in magic rituals. These include clay animals that were crafted mating to ensure the fertility of the animals they needed, and other animals with holes poked in them for the purposes of hunting them. The Venus depictions are obvious as symbols of human reproduction, but would later become symbolic of the greater fertility of crops and the land when humans settled into agriculture. This kind of ritual hunting and fertility would form the basis of almost all religions and witchcraft practices, as they bear the same underlying origin in animism. Within witchcraft, this is called sympathetic magic, and primarily works from the idea that like affects like, which is what the doctrine of signatures is based on. Broadly speaking, prayer, meditation, rituals, rites, dance, and rhyming are all related to this idea of sympathetic magic, which assumes that all things are connected by invisible bonds. In order to access these bonds effectively, the stars had to be recorded. The sorcerer was drawn as a constellation, and in fact is the same constellation recorded in Turkey at the site of Göbekli Tepe in the form of the Great Lion. The sorcerer predates the oldest constructed temple we found evidence for by some 4,000 years. It is not believed the two sites are connected in any way other than a shared interest and religious significance attributed to the same pattern of stars. The dark caves of our Paleolithic ancestors is likely the birthplace of the magical and ritual practices that would evolve into the religions we know today. Language itself likely developed as a way to name things, a unique utterance to differentiate one object, animal, person, place, or force from another. The name of a thing contained the magical property of knowledge which could be stored in the mnemonic pattern of that word. Language is believed to have been developing in humans as Homo sapiens for around 150,000 years. The true nature of the origins of language is still a mystery. However the mechanism may have evolved, the earliest structured language would have been to name things. This not only makes sense strategically, but it is suggested by the oldest stories of mythology and religion, humanity naming all the things they saw after their creation. Language became synonymous with magic in the ancient world, and no doubt in the Paleolithic world as well. One who knew the name of a plant could direct its therapeutic power. Again, always under the backdrop that such power was dependent on the astrological alignment, essentially the birth chart or horoscope of that plant. In modern times, the themes of magic and language still apply, with the word spelling as spells, or grimoire, which is French for grammar. From Egypt to Sumeria to India, we get some of the oldest written mantras and incantations, and from these the major themes of witchcraft would be born. Sorcery and witchcraft were an everyday part of life, the same way one might have their day altered by the performance of their favorite sports team, or the notifications on their phone, or the news. Because everything was connected by invisible bonds, many precautions were taken on a daily basis to keep witchcraft from affecting them. The Maklu is one such ritual incantation series from Akkadian text. It is a list of anti-witchcraft rituals. The opening line is, "O Shemesh, these are the figurines of my sorcery." The text is actually from a conversation between a sorcerer and his king. As the first few tablets are recited, a figurine of the sorcerer or witch is burned, drowned in black liquid, placed face down on the ground, and finally crushed. One line reads, "Pure oven, great daughter of Anu, inside whom the fire of the grave is flaring, inside whom the valiant fire god has taken up residence, whose flames have reached the sky, burn, set alight, incinerate my witch, may my warlock's and witch's life quickly come to an end." Witchcraft was mainly seen as bad when it was directed towards someone in a negative way. One example of positive witchcraft is in the famous term abracadabra, which was written and spoken in a triangular pattern. Other similar incantations have been found where a word or sentence is spoken in descending or diminishing order. The sun represented the male organ, and the moon represented the female organ. Hence why the sun is usually a god and the moon is usually a goddess. Magic has its roots in these energetic qualities of fertility. The word magic comes from magus in Latin and from their magush in Persian, otherwise known as the Magi. They were astrologers and one of our main sources of ancient plant names. Their name is related to a Sumerian phrase pronounced like shush or shu, which means something like big phallus or semen that heals. The Greek pharmakos, where we get pharmacist, is a cognate of that same magush and its Sumerian origin. Pharmakos means enchanter or wizard or even poisoner. The underlying idea was that plants, especially those with therapeutic and psychedelic effects, contained higher concentrations of the vital liquid that came from the heavens in the form of rain. So we see the very concept of magic, sorcery, and witchcraft is this sort of sympathetic joining of ideas believed to be related, the inherent power of the male and female sex organs, the stars, sun, and moon above, and the nature around them. But from that combination, we have the underlying basis for folk magic, religious rituals, and fertility festivals, and so on. Specific times of the year or day, certain words spoken, sometimes acted out in dance or ritual foreplay, and certain plants, animals, or figurines which represented them. Humans have been doing some version of this for at least 30,000 years. At least that is the furthest we can confidently say with evidence of ritual paintings and ritual figurines. Simply calling it superstition seems unreasonable. Superstitions certainly have derived from these practices, but what if there is something that connects these things in that magical way? The answer, I believe, lies in fungus. Sympathetic magic, synchronicity, the collective unconscious, serendipity, astrology, incantations, all have deep roots in fungal communication and interaction. Fungus is that invisible bond that links all things together. Microbial mimicry explains the doctrine of signatures, or the like affects like, that is so inherent to the belief of magic. Fungus are intelligent and telepathic organisms. Throughout this channel, we have explored how the practices of protection from evil spirits are consistent with antifungal and antimicrobial activity with the related holy or sacred plants. We've also seen how certain mushroom species were revered for their healing and hallucinogenic and euphoric properties, to the point of worship and personification as God on earth. We've seen the fermentation of bread and beer as directly recognizing a spiritual miracle from the gods in the form of invisible yeast, as well as the spore nucleating water that produces clouds, the invocation of rain dances and fertility. The night is the growth period of fungus and also the height of magical and supernatural phenomena. We've explored fungus as the terraformers of the earth and how they play the most important role in coevolution. We've explored fungus as the terraformers of the earth and how they play the most important role in coevolution, the health of an ecosystem, and of course that decomposition and disease that destroys and converts organic material to be reusable. Humans for all time recognized an invisible force amongst them, one that mimicked the very heavens above as the light affects their growth. Their holiest sacraments involved special fungus, and the deadly demons and diseases were kept at bay by antifungal plant chemicals and precious metals. The gut was the seat of the soul in ancient belief, and likewise the microbiome is being understood to have vast implications in the health and mental well-being of a person, and furthermore it is the balance of the microbiome which is the most important for the body as a whole. We've seen the kingdom of God compared to yeast, and God sending mold to enemies. We've explored the sacred mushroom as the foundational myth to most ancient religions, and the universal motifs and archetypes that reveal a common factor in all human cultures around the world. In witchcraft, one of the strongest sources of power is found in graveyard mold. Through experiments of mold growth, it has been shown that they are affected by human intention, intelligently reacting and responding to us, and sometimes possessing us as biohackers. The threads of fate that connects all of nature is mycelium. Worshipping and communing with these fungal entities helped man navigate his life and influence his environment, first through shamanic rituals, and later through witchcraft, prayer, and incantations. In the next video, we will see specifically the role of woman in these mushroom and fungal rituals. Thanks for watching.